You're watching Leafs Morning Take with host Nick Alberga and former NHLer Jay Rosehill. The show starts now.
Still perfect in 2025, presented by Bet365. Welcome to Leafs Morning Take, the Monday edition. Nick Alberga and Jay Rosehill. What's going on, Rosie?
What's happening? I'm a little bit frazzled as there's some breaking news in our country of Canada here. I think the big boy is going to step down and trying to focus on the show, though.
Lots to discuss over the weekend. Open account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, all in uppercase today. Don't forget as well, our Super Chat charity partner this season is Sick Kids. Want to make sure that your question or comment gets on the show. Hit us up with a Super Chat. Proceeds from our Super Chat will go to Sick Kids, ranked the #1 research-intensive children's hospital in Canada and 3rd in the world. And I'm sure a lot of people have some Super Chats today, Rosie.
Yeah, I hope so. It's back to a routine, man. Kids are off to school today, and we're just going to start rolling along as we normally do. The holidays are over, and hate to say it, we're going to kind of enter the dog days of winter here right about meow.
And Rosie, we've reached the midway point of the Maple Leaf season, if you can believe it. I mean, it's pretty crazy how, you look a couple weeks back and now all of a sudden we've reached the midway point, 26-13-2, first in the Atlantic Division. What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's funny how it flies by, man. We were just doing camp, and then I think we did the quarter way mark that didn't seem long ago. And, before you know it, playoffs will be right here. We'll be in that last little bit of tuning part of the season before the playoffs. And it's getting kind of exciting. But overall, I've got a pretty optimistic view on this team. I tweeted out yesterday that kind of at the halfway point, I'm noticing that I used to always notice that they kind of found a way to lose. And you're like, oh, if we just kind of got that save or that one bad bounce or that one penalty killed us or, oh, they didn't bury that backdoor one or just reasons galore on why they almost won but just didn't. And now it's like the opposite. They get in these games where, no team's always got their best. No team's always firing on all cylinders. But when the Leafs aren't, they seem to still find ways to squeak out wins, whether it's against good teams, bottom feeders, middle of the road, equally matched teams, whatever. They're finding ways to win, and it's encouraging. And it seems like the changes that ultimately Tree Living's made over the last little while is starting to come to fruition. And I still wait with bated breath. It's not that I'm planning the parade or anything, but it seems like this team's got a different identity, which is exciting.
And I think it's important to stress, like this time last year, it was like pretty much the same record. But I would agree with you. I think the process has looked a lot different in games where maybe, they find a way to lose in the past. They're finding ways to win, which I think is an excellent development. I think in general, their style and brand is more conducive to winning in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And again, I can't believe we're halfway through this thing, but I've got a lot of internal belief. I'm very optimistic, feeling positive just about the direction, just about the style and in which way they play. Like even in the last week alone, to play that grinding style against teams like the Islanders and Philadelphia, it's been a breath of fresh air here, Rosie.
Yeah, I just notice the way they play, and I think it's by design. It leads to a lot less against them. Like remember the constant turnovers and odd man rushes and breakaways, and they give the penalty kills given up, or the power plays given up breakaways to their penalty kill. And it was just kind of a debacle. There wasn't a lot of emphasis on defense. It was a circus style loop and shoot, not a lot of structure, no accountability, and it blew up in their face all the time. They were trying to win game 6-5, and it's just not conducive to winning in this league. And they seem to have cleaned that up. And the stuff they do give up, which is inevitable here and there, is, backed up by really solid goaltending too. And it's kind of exciting. I just focus on, the offense. Can they get the big boys all going together at once? Which I don't think we've really seen, where everyone's just in the zone. And can they translate that to the playoffs? So it's they're in a good place, very positive, and it's been fun to watch this season. And another half of hockey left to play. We'll see where they end up.
To your point, much more predictable this year, where if you recall last season specifically, we had no clue which Maple Leafs team was going to show up night in and night out. I mean, for the majority, I would say a good portion of the 41, it's been a pretty consistent effort. The other thing we've noticed, knock on wood, they hold on to leads. The perfect record going into the third period when leading after 2 is pretty impressive. Also as impressive, 24-1-1 when they score three plus goals. Like it's a magic, a simple and easy formula, and they're getting the saves too. We'll hop into that story from Sunday, but after surrendering a stinker to start that game, I thought Dennis Hildeby was really, really solid when called upon.
Yeah, for sure. Between the pipes has been phenomenal, and they have not had the perfect setup by any stretch of the imagination. Everyone's been hurt. You'd had to try out different guys, and I think that's a bit of a product of how they're playing in front of that goalie. They used to hang them out to dry, man, and I mean that can make you lose your confidence, get you swimming in the crease, losing your angles, scrambling around like crazy. Our goalies haven't had to do that very much, and in return they've played fantastically and bailed them out of some of the breakdowns that inevitably do happen. Just all around pretty solid. It's going to be interesting to see where they take this. Again, I'm looking for them to put together the offense and the big boys there, and especially that power play. If that can get going, I don't think the power play can stay where it is right now. It is that one black eye on this really solid start of the season.
The only surprise I will say, Rosie, is 41 games in, I could never have suspected the Maple Leafs would have 6 scraps to their name. Like, I felt Craig Berube was going to come in and everybody was going to try to prove their worth and they were going to fight left and right. But that hasn't been the story. We saw Jake McCabe fight. We'll get to that coming up here on the podcast. But they're tied for 23rd overall of 32 teams in terms of fighting majors. And not one of them has come from maybe pound for pound the best fighter in the league in Ryan Reeves. Does that surprise you?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think they were going to come out and just start 2005ing it with 3 heavyweights and scrapping every night and whatnot. It's just not what the league's doing right now. But I thought they'd have a little bit heavier of a look. I don't think that teams have been trying to take advantage and running around and creating a lot of opportunities for the Leafs to go out and challenge guys. But yeah, it is down. I thought Revo would have a few more right now. Again, it's not going to be like Revo is going to put up 25 scraps in a season, but the fact that he has 0 at the halfway point is kind of shocking. I can imagine that he doesn't find the opportunity to find a dance partner very often, but there's been more than a handful of opportunities where I think if he is doing his job and values that type of thing, and to justify a roster spot when the opportunity arises, you think he'd be there to show up and challenge guys and get into that type of thing. But it hasn't happened. I'm not sure why that is, but it is something that makes people think in Leafs Nation right now.
Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Now, over the weekend, the NHL unveiled the Maple Leafs' quarter century team, and I was befuddled to find out Jay Rosehill didn't crack the roster. But according to sources over at the NHL, you were going to be on the third team. So we got Team 1, Marner, Matthews, Sundin, Caberlet, Riley, Belfour, and Team 2, Kessel, Nylander, Tavares, McCabe, Phaneuf, and Curtis Joseph. Any reservations, Rosie?
Brian McCabe, did he I should have looked him up before the show, but I just remember he took so much bloody heat for just being a pylon and whatnot. But obviously, he was a staple there for quite a while.
He's on Team Canada, man.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know, maybe that's just the market at the time turning on him. I wasn't paying attention to the Leafs that much during that era, but no, some good players. When that first came out, everyone's kind of up in arms about this guy and that guy. You got to realize that it is the 25 years plus, so it's just going back to 2000. But those goalies stand out to me. I mean, Cujo and Belfour are pretty legendary in there. And once again, it's hard to start putting up legendary monikers for a team that hasn't won anything in so long. So hopefully that gets rectified soon and you can start having those legendary conversations.
The NHL, by the way, took Marner on Team 1 ahead of Nylander. Is that a good debate for you? Who do you prefer?
Oh, yet to be seen, yet to be determined, man. I think Willie's the thing that stands out to me about Willie is that he has shown up in pressure-packed situations and Mitch has not. Simple as that. I think Mitch is maybe more of a dynamic player. His numbers are probably better. He is having a phenomenal season right now, and that's fantastic as far as who needs the number 1 spot. I think at the end of the day, when you go back and decide that, it is still up for grabs.
Rosie, there's a guy in the chat. I guess he's a Flyers fan. Don Perico sounds like a type of tequila. He's asking what Leaf is going to get knocked out on Tuesday. So I think he's really proud of Garnet Hathaway. He's not really a hockey player, he's just a shift disturber. But Don's
Oh.
running rampant in the chat right now. I think he's got to answer to you probably.
Donnie boy. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm curious to see if Revo dresses on
Where
Tuesday.
is Ryan Reeves? That's my question.
He's in the press box is where he is. But it'll be interesting to see if he challenges Hathaway. I mean, are we getting into the McCabe thing right now? It was ugly looking, unfortunate. I didn't like it, but they got a rematch on Tuesday here, so it'll be interesting to see if there is any repercussions or answering back. I don't think there is a necessity to do such a thing, but be interesting to see if Revo gets in there and has a chat with Hathaway or not.
We're going to dive into your thoughts on that play in general, or the response there from McCabe, the injury coming up in mere moments. We do want to tee up a very special guest once again on today's podcast. Pierre McGuire is going to drop by. I think it's very timely to get Pierre on. We're going to talk about Easton Cowan's World Junior. Jonathan Toews, one of Pierre's favorites, without a shadow of a doubt at the World Juniors. We're going to talk about that and talk about the Leafs in general. Again, the 41-game mark, first in the Atlantic Division. Feeling good about life. So Pierre Maguire is coming up, Rosie, in about 20 minutes here.
Yeah, looking forward to that. He's always a good interview, and I just feel like with the World Juniors just wrapping up and everything that went on with Team Canada, it's a no-brainer to have Pierre on, because when I think of the World Juniors, Bob McKenzie and Pierre Maguire are the first guys that kind of pop out to me, and we'll get his take on what's transpired over that tournament this year.
Yeah, very fascinating tourney to say the least, but I think the right team in general won, and Team USA. How are you doing 3-on-3? We talked about this a couple years ago with Canada. I think the Bedard year where they won it in OT, it was 3-on-3. How do you solve a tournament? How do you decide a tournament like that, man?
Yeah, I don't know. People are all up in arms. I like the 3-on-3. I think it's
to decide a gold medal. Come on.
Well, fucking, you play the Masters or the Open Championship in golf, and you'll have a one-hole playoff. Like we're all tied up. Who can get the next one? I get the 3-on-3, the shootout. It's just I do not want it in the NHL by any stretch, but it just seems like we got to get this thing solved. So let's play it this way, as opposed to having those, inevitably over the course of history, you're going to have those marathon games. If you play 5-on-5 and you're going to go 20 minutes and then into the third overtime, and oh God, I think they're just trying to avoid that and keep it exciting. A tournament like this, it's a short tournament. I'm not really against it in international hockey. NHL, no thank you, but I do like it NHL regular season. I wouldn't want a Stanley Cup or anything, but for a gold medal, I don't know, it doesn't get me up in arms too much.
Okay, so for a gold medal, you're okay doing 3-on-3, but never the NHL. That makes no sense to me. I just think if you want
gold medal in World Juniors or the Stanley Cup.
But I mean, that is the Stanley Cup of junior hockey, is winning the World Jays. And to play an amazing tournament, then lose because of 3-on-3 OT because of a missed assignment is nuts to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean?
I don't mind it, but I just see it going. It's just fun because as I'm watching, it's like, especially with games I don't care about, goes to overtime. I'm like, oh, it's gonna be exciting. Like, who's gonna screw this up? Who's gonna get the puck possession first? It's just an interesting thing that's come about the last few years thanks to the NHL. And I don't know. Whatever. I get what you're saying, but it just doesn't get me worked up.
Finnish goalie was incredible, but again, the right team won. Don't forget, join us in Music City Thursday, March 20th to Sunday, March 23rd, 2025, the first ever TLN Nation Vacation live podcast, winery tours. We're going to the Toronto-Nashville game at Bridgestone Arena. Promises to be the trip of a lifetime. We're offering 2 packages, one with flights priced at $24.50 plus tax, and one without, $12.99 plus tax. Please note, hotel rooms are double occupancy. Rosie, I can't wait, man. We're a couple months away from this trip, but it is going to be something special.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, those packages include everything, right? You got your hotel, you got your itinerary, we got tickets to the Maple Leafs game against the Preds, which is a wicked barn to watch hockey. And believe it or not, that Bridgestone Arena it gets rocking. They're pretty passionate about the Preds down there. And I think it'll be even more so when the Leafs are in town. All kinds of stuff going on. Jump on board with that before it's too late. It's going to be fun.
Maybe that weasel Don Perico in the chat will come watch the team he probably hates to love in the Toronto Maple Leafs here for the Nation Vacation. For more information on how to book, head on over to nationgear.ca or check out the link in our show bio. Life's too short for ordinary vacations. All right, at the Leafs Nation 401 here on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Leafs Morning Take, wherever you find your podcast. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget to visit the LeafsNation.com. Rosie, our boy, profoundly back. What a weekend for Matthew Knies. First career hat trick against Boston. In total, gets 4 goals, 2 assists, plus 6, 7 shots on goal. We'll start with this. How stunned were you when you saw on social media when Auston Matthews skate out for the morning skate on Saturday? I was absolutely floored. I was stunned, man.
I think it was the show before that I said, "Oh well, don't even
Same.
think about Auston Matthews. I'd bet the farm that he doesn't play this weekend. What are you talking about?" And then he's in the first game. It kind of blew my mind. What can you say about the injury developments for the Toronto Maple Leafs? It is an absolute scattering of information and results that make just about no sense. But at the end of the day, very pleased to see him back. It just doesn't follow, a logical pattern of as far as, on the one hand, at the beginning, he's day to day and he misses forever. And the next time he's like, I'm shutting it down. I do not think I don't know if this is going to be healed 100% by the end of the season. Like, Jesus, man, this guy, get him healthy for the playoffs. Oh, I'm playing today. Like, it's just really weird. But I don't claim to know what's going on in that department. But what I do think is that it's fantastic to have him back. I hope he stays healthy. I hope we can move on from this and just talk about Austin's play instead of his injury status. And obviously, he's feeling pretty good. I mean, I honestly don't even think he was that dynamic or dominant, and he's just cranking numbers out. Like, imagine this guy goes full pin again and is burying the way he's capable of. I just think he could be an absolute force, and I don't think we've seen his best this season by any stretch.
I thought he was awesome on Saturday. I even tweeted it out. I thought it was the best we've seen Auston Matthews, period, this season, skating wise. I think the most important part for me is that he was initiating contact. That's the one thing. But I just couldn't get past the fact of the wording from Wednesday to Saturday, how it changes that much, where it's like, it really felt like he was doubting his future for the next couple weeks, at least, even dating up to the Four Nations. All of a sudden he shows up. He's like, I'm playing in this back to back.
I know. It's so odd, man. Like, and it's not us doing anything about it. They're the ones giving us this information to go off of, and then the results in the aftermath are the polar opposite of the mood during the interviews, whether it's other players or Chief or Matthews himself or just the reporting. It's just really weird. But yeah, I got the vibe that this guy's kind of down. He's not sure what the future holds. It's not healing. I thought he seemed kind of frustrated and kind of, almost shone some light on the fact that, hey, be prepared for me not to be healthy for a long time. And then so we wrap our heads around that and think about what that looks like. Four Nations Cup, LTIR, what's the plan here moving forward? And then he's like, I'm back like days later, which is quite shocking. And honestly, it's a pleasant surprise. I thought we were going to be without him for quite some time. I don't know what the future holds. This could continue to yo-yo. Maybe he will, take another step back or a setback. This thing, whatever's ailing him, seems to be kind of inconsistent with the linear pattern of healing. So we'll see where it goes. But nonetheless, nice to have him back. He made an impact this weekend without question.
You're right. Just really bizarre stuff coming out of Leafs camp. We're not shocked on the injury front, but again, the most important thing is he looked like Matthews, which is great to see. That line in general was outstanding with Knies, Matthews, and Marner. So he played 17:32 on Saturday against Boston, 20:13 against Philadelphia. I think the only thing I would add to the Matthews conversation is hearing Craig Ruby talk about it after the game, where it's like they're going to be smart with his minutes. Like, again, gets back to my bigger question: what are we doing here? It's like early January, but I digress, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. How do we report on it and have an opinion when we don't have any information?
I know.
They have so much shade that they cover these things with that it's hard to, you're basically speculating every time you talk about it because they don't give you very much information. Back when, in a normal situation, they're like, this guy has a grade 3 separation of his shoulder. It's this amount of time. Does he need this or that? Here's where we're going. And you can just kind of, plan for a normal trajectory of an injury. And this thing is just so much darkness. It's hard to really talk about, but obviously there's something that bothers him that it kind of, I don't know if it comes and goes, but it doesn't heal 100%. It's never really left his mind or his body. And they're aware of that, and they're not going to ride this horse like bloody Seabiscuit to try to whatever get the win, or like you're going to try to like keep in mind that Auston is got the potential to re-aggravate something. I guess that's what that means with Craig Berube. And again, it's the halfway point in the season, and everyone knows in Leafs Nation the only thing that matters is that playoff performance. So I guess they'll be smart with it, which I understand.
You think Knies was horned up about the return of his boy, or what?
Yeah, seriously, man. He had a bit of a, he was in a bit of a lull, hadn't scored in a while. They look at the points or goals in the last month, and they weren't that hot. Okay, fine. And I talked on the show about the peaks and valleys, and you get into those little ruts, and you got to just stick to the process and pull yourself out of it. And eventually you'll get that bounce that kind of climbs you out of it. And lo and behold, on Saturday there, he gets that funky tip that finds its way in, and literally the floodgates just open. He gets 3 more in the next 3 periods, I guess it must have been, but very impressive. He is a player that I'd like to talk to Pierre about, what he thinks his ceiling is as a guy who's seen so many prospects go from prospect to take fruition in the NHL, and see where he thinks he's at and what his ceiling is. But I don't know. I got a group chat, and guys are like, "Oh God, everyone's got a mid-level prospect who's doing decent," and I'm like, dudes, I don't think you understand. This is a 22-year-old power forward, and yeah, he's playing with those big boys, but he can finish, he can make plays, he's a workhorse, he's a big body. I can't say enough about him, and our hopes have come true with this guy being a performer and making a difference on the roster.
He is fearless. That's what I love the most about Matthew Knies. What an impeccable weekend for him. Now up to 15 goals, 5 away from the 20 goal mark, which is outstanding value. He's obviously going to get paid coming up in the summer, but so be it. He's been that damn good for this Maple Leafs team. So they scored 9 times over the weekend, and lo and behold, 3 from a defenseman, Rosie. This is a big time development in this market. They've been tracking the last month and a half. McCabe, OEL, and Riley all score in the same weekend. This is nuts.
I know, again, with the floodgates opening, right? We've been talking about the D being very dry, and sometimes you can hide under the radar with that stuff, but once it kind of comes to light and the media is talking about it, it's kind of on everyone's mind. And McCabe with a short side snipe, OEL with kind of a lucky one, like a poke check that honestly should have been saved. It goes under like the part of the cuff and the glove of the goaltender. And then obviously the big one with Morgan Riley getting that OT winner. He needed that so badly. Honestly, like
so bad.
They're talking on the broadcast about his plus minus. He's minus 11, and the next closest guy's minus 3. This is on a team, right at the top of the Eastern Conference, and you got your star top 5 pick type thing. Defenseman struggling that bad with not a lot to show out there. He needed that big time, and I hope it's a weight off his back. I hope he can get some confidence from it, and like I said, the floodgates can open for that back end, and they can start to contribute.
All right, let's get to the Jake McCabe situation with Garnet Hathaway, the scrap, what led to the scrap. What did you see of the entire play?
I mean, just kind of not a huge play. I mean, he's riding him through the goalie. Yeah, it is Hathaway who rocked McCabe earlier. Like, Hathaway is not trying to bury the goalie or anything, but McCabe's there anyways saying, hey, there's the guy that hammered me. I'm going to stand up. 1 shot, 2 shots, and then this was it. 3 shots. Okay, Hathaway's like, how much do you want me to take here? Sheds his stuff. Away they go. You could say you got the jump on him a little bit, but McCabe, you got to be ready for that, giving him that many shots. I got no problem with what transpired beforehand. McCabe kind of does the banana peel, goes down a little bit, fights over. He's kind of doesn't have a good grab. Tough guy with Hathaway, and he just gets his head totally squished. And I saw on Twitter some about slow motion, different angles. He tried to do it. I mean, when you're falling 2 men together, you can kind of collapse on a guy's head, and it's not the most ideal situation. But if you look at McCabe's helmet the whole time, it gets completely squished and twisted, and he's had, head trauma in the last recent while, and it's just not a good look. When you look at the way he's getting up, when he's getting up on the back of his hand and he doesn't even know how to prop himself up, it's an ugly look, man. He was obviously, I hope he was just dazed, or I don't even know what you call that, but this day and age with heads and the fact that he's just coming off, I think it was it a puck to his head that had concussion like symptoms. Just not a good look. I don't have a problem with Hathaway. I don't think there needs to be retribution unless you want to. I don't mind going in there and saying, hey, buddy, now we're going again just because I'm pissed off about it. Don't mind that, but I don't think there's a bounty on Hathaway or he did anything awful as far as I could tell. It's just really unfortunate, a bad look. I did not like to see McCabe being that kind of Bambi legs and can't even pull himself out. It's ugly look.
Firstly, I just want to say I'm happy he didn't return to the game. I saw that take place and I saw him leave the ice, and I got to credit Morgan Riley for being there. That could have been very, very scary if he falls back again the way he did. So his teammate was there, but that was a concussion. Like you're asking what we saw, that was a concussed hockey player. And I'm happy it's getting through in the NHL where it's like a guy gets just absolutely pasted. You could tell he was cooked and he didn't come back to the game. I don't want to see him for a while, man. Like I think to your point, and I lean on you for conversations like this one. You've lived it. You've taken headshots in the league. But if you're scrapping, that's going to be part of what happens in this league when you try to step up for your teammates. Regardless of your opponent, sometimes you're going to take a lick. I didn't think Hathaway got many shots in there. I think it was more so the way that he actually fell in the play, Rosie.
Yeah, just when they got piled up on the way down for sure. And it's pretty clear what was going on. In this day's NHL, you don't come back for that. There's no more, oh, you got your bell rung, get back out there. We're not doing that anymore, and for good reason. It's just these concussions, man. It's not like you can go into an x-ray machine or something like that, and they're like, oh, you have a grade 3 concussion and that's going to be this amount of time and here's what you do for it. It's just wait and see. I mean, can he look at a TV? Did the lights hurt his eyes? Is he getting headaches? Is his vision buggered up? Like no one knows what's going to happen. The brain is so complex. We know next to nothing about it. Wait and see what happens. But it's a good thing this day and age. They're not dicking around with guys' heads and doing the old get back out there type of thing. Even if he feels good this morning, which I hope he does, we'll see where it takes him. But the fact that he's already had trauma to his head recently tells me to miss some time.
A lot of people in the chat are asking for Ryan Reaves to dress on Tuesday night to address Garnet Hathaway. How do you feel about that?
If that's what Revo wants to do, I'm fine with it, man. You stick up for each other. Again, I don't have a problem with what Hathaway did. Someone on Twitter was kind of trying to say that it was intentional and slow-moed from this angle and stuff. I didn't see that. It happened fast. He just got piled up, and don't have a problem with the play. Don't have a problem with the result. If Revo wants to go up there and challenge Hathaway, so be it, man. If he picks the right spot in the game where he thinks that it would help the team, that's up to him, man. I'm not against that stuff by any stretch, but I'm not calling for anyone's head by any stretch.
I was a bit stunned, honestly, that, one of those two games because of the opponent that we didn't see Ryan Reaves. Are you past that conversation? Like, I would say, to play devil's advocate, I like the fact that it seems like they're trying to at least get consistent with the thought of icing a regular lineup to get reps in here.
Yeah, maybe. Just once again with the Leafs, the timing was funny to me. They
Yeah.
At a time where Auston comes back against the Bruins, that's the time you pick to pull Revo out, and then the Flyers, who have got some physicality to him too. So we'll see where it goes. Revo just hasn't really done what we thought. Again, it doesn't really matter what his fight count is to me, but I thought he'd be out there, crashing and banging and running D and forechecking his own dumps and just making havoc and making guys go onto their heels and shut down and say, I'll try tomorrow. I'm done with this game. And he hasn't totally been effective in that sense. And maybe that's his age or speed. I don't know what it is, but it looks like they're starting to lean towards, having him watch from the press box more often than not.
Well, Rosie, I believe today's guest is ready. So this interview is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers. Get custom ring building delivered in less than 4 weeks with the Charm Masterpiece Program and an unbeatable pricing policy. Charm Diamond Centers is proudly Canadian-owned and operated since 1972 with more than 85 locations across the country through Charm and their sister brands. For more information, go to charmdiamondcenters.com as we welcome in Happy New Year himself, Pierre McGuire. What's going on, Pierre? How are you?
Yeah, great to visit with you. Hello, Rosie.
How are you, Pierre? Good to see you, man.
Great to see you.
So, Pierre, we've been having a fun conversation. I can't believe where the time has gone. The 41 game mark means we're halfway through this Maple Leaf season. What's your read on Craig Berube's Maple Leafs thus far?
They're real good. I like their team a lot. I like the structure. I like the size. I like the left wing component. Rosie will appreciate this. When you look at Knies, you look at Pacioretty, you look at the size of McMahon, you look at the size, obviously, of Lorentz. If you're playing in a playoff series right now, Nick, that puck's going in the opposition's right corner all the time, your left, and there's all kinds of contact. And you see what Knies did. You saw the Pacioretty hit last night against Philadelphia. It's an easy game plan to create. It's a fun game for the players to play. It engages a cycle game in a spot where guys know where the cycles be created. And I love the depth and defense. I know McCabe goes out last night. I was listening to you and Rosie talk about it. That's another story for another day. Look at Simon Benoit. honestly, Hathaway should have gone after him. I get why the other stuff happened. Hathaway got a rough ride from Benoit. Benoit's an equal opportunity hitter. He reminds me a lot of Rosie. Like he doesn't pick spots. He just goes get guys. And so their team's good. Toronto's real good. Not having Tanev in the lineup hurts them. You see the difference when Tanev's in the lineup. They're a real good team. This is the best Leafs team I've seen in a long time. They really are, because they are a team. They're not individuals. They're a team.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of positivity coming out of Leafland. What about Auston Matthews? He's kind of had some yo-yo of reports and results with his injury, whatever that is. Were you surprised to see him come back after his comments so early in that timeline?
You being a former college hockey player, you'll appreciate this. It's a busy time of the year for college hockey players. So I was actually at a bunch of college games on Saturday. I stopped in a restaurant to watch the third period of the Bruins in Toronto, and I see Auston Matthews is playing. And I'm going, what the heck happened? I didn't think he was playing in this game. And then obviously last night I was working for another network. I was watching him play last night. And, obviously 2 assists last night, 3 assists on Saturday. And you're saying this guy's back. Here's the one thing, though. And, Rosie, I feel really comfortable saying this. I don't know if you guys have talked about it, Nick, or not. If he's not 100% and he can't get a sign-off from the Leafs doctor, I would never let him play in the Four Nations. No chance. Because if they're going to win the Stanley Cup, Auston Matthews has to be as close to 100% as possible. And if he's not, I would not let him play in the Four Nations.
Pierre, you've been in management. What does that conversation look like behind the scenes as you get close to a big tournament? Because we've talked about that quite a bit the last couple of weeks, and his intention to play in this tourney.
Well, I think the biggest thing is that there has to be a moment of trust for everybody. And Rosie knows, because of the robust nature of his game, if there's not a level of trust between the player, the medical people, and I'm not talking about the doctors right now, I'm talking about the trainers, and then the trainers to the doctors, and then the doctors to management. Like, there's a clearly defined chain of command. And if that chain of command isn't maintained, it's a problem. I think if everybody's honest and forthright with one another, so it starts with Auston. Are you healthy? What's ailing you? How do we fix it if it's ailing you? Then the trainer goes to the doctor. Then the doctor goes to the manager. If that chain of command gets broken, you got a problem internally. I don't think that'll happen in Toronto, but that's critical right now. And Rosie knows there are a lot of times you want to play, right, Rosie? You just want to play.
Yeah.
You don't want to let your team down, but you can't. You shouldn't be. Sometimes the team's got to save you from yourself.
Yeah, without question. And with Auston Matthews being who he is and how dynamic and what a force he is on this roster in a year where they're doing all the things we've mentioned and they have a chance to go deep and finally make a run, it feels like they're as good a well-rounded team as they've been in years and years and years. To go and have him, with the history that he's had in the first half of the season with this injury, to go and play in the Four Nations Cup and potentially get hurt and then that affect the playoff run seems crazy to me. And I just hope there isn't a situation where there is that, management versus player being at odds and one wants to do one and the other doesn't want to do it. So we'll wait and see here, but it's an interesting conversation for sure, especially with that player.
The one thing I would caution everybody, I know the Americans want him to play, and I'm sure the NHLPA wants him to play, and I'm sure the NHL wants him to play. And the TV people want him to play, especially south of the border, coming off of their Winter Classic ratings, which were an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah.
So they want him playing. If I'm the Leafs, I'm not playing to any one of those elements. I'm not. This is about the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I'm going to say this, and I'm not trying to be negative, because I'm going to be working at this tournament. So I want it to be really good. But I will tell you guys this right now. When there are no Russians at an international event, there's always an asterisk by everything that goes on. Everything. I've been around international hockey a long time. Heck, I played internationally. So I'm just telling you, when there's no Russians involved, it's a different event. It's not 100% what everybody wants to do.
I agree. This thing is it's never happened before. It's not like there's this pedigree or prestige. It's not the Olympics, and the Russians aren't even in it. So what are you really winning? A best on best? Every time I hear that, I kind of roll my eyes, because it's simply not. One of the greatest hockey nations in the history of the game isn't even participating. You cannot call it best on best. Just another reason I hope Auston Matthews takes the option in this tournament.
See, Nick, this is why I've always liked this man. Common sense is a virtue. And Jay's got it. He gets it. And that's what that Minnesota Duluth degree gets you.
I left after a year, Pierre. I was looking forward to the degree.
No, in Hockey DB says opposite, but I love the college look here because I want to get your opinion. World Junior time, we're going to get to Easton Cowan obviously momentarily, but Matthew Knies, unbelievable weekend, has a lot of chemistry going with Marner and Matthews. What's the ceiling in your mind for Matthew Knies, Pierre?
Power forward. There's a guy that used to play for the Montreal Canadiens named Mike McPhee. I don't know if you guys remember Mike, but he played at RPI. He was big, he was fast, he was strong. He's one of Bob Gainey's favorites. He never really put up huge numbers, but he was such a reliable player, penalty killing, forechecking, initiating physically. I see Knies being like him, but better. So I could see Knies being a 25 to 35 goal scorer, especially playing with those guys. You know, I know 4 in the last 2 games. I get it. Those numbers are a little elevated for him. The one thing is, and Jay, I'll appreciate this too, when he plays with a bull in a china shop mentality, look at all the room he creates for Mitchell and for Auston. Yeah. And that's his value. It was a lot like Mike McPhee when he played in Montreal. So I see similarities. I just think Auston's Knies is a little bit better player than McPhee was, but McPhee was a really good player. He was a really good player.
It is exciting. Speaking of World Juniors, when I think of World Juniors, Pierre, I think of you and just the staple and the mark that you put on that tournament. And, you know, Canada, I just think they haven't been in this low of a place ever, probably being beat out in the quarters back-to-back years for the first time. Conversely, the Americans have never been higher, winning back-to-back gold medals. What do you think is going to happen with Hockey Canada regarding that tournament? And are they going to do an overhaul? And what do you think that looks like?
First of all, Jay, thank you for those kind words. I put 9 years into that event, and I loved every single day. I never had a bad day at the World Junior. I'm really grateful for the time that I spent with Gordon Miller and all the people behind the scenes. Like, people don't realize, yeah, they see the on-air people. It's the people behind the scenes that were such staples and professionals for so long that I appreciate. One of them is a guy you don't even know, but he did a lot of your games, and I built a lot of replay packs through him. His name's Jamie Brannigan. And, you know, he'd say, "You like this, Rosie?" Yeah, I do. I like him because he's tough. Anyways, I think Hockey Canada is in the same position as they were after they lost in Helsinki in 2004. And Bob Nicholson was in charge then. And he said, no more messing around, no more politics. We're going to get the best players. We're not putting together a ghost roster, and we're going to get the best coaches. So if you look at the 05 team, they're the best team ever that represented Canada. And the reason why they were the best is because there was no hockey that year. But they picked the best coach, who was a no-nonsense, tough Albertan by the name of Brent Sutter. And I was at every single practice, and I was at every single game. And I can tell you right now, I sat there New Year's Day. He ran a practice. Gretzky was there. Kevin Lowe was there. Gordon Miller was there. Bob Nicholson was there. And I was there. And Wayne looked at all of us and like, not only is this a great practice, this kid, 87, he's pretty good too. That was Crosby. So the whole thing, Brent changed the whole thing. And then he goes and wins in 06 in Vancouver, which is amazing. But what he's smart about, he's got DeBoer and he's got Hartsburg, 2 really good coaches. Hartsburg takes over in 07 in Leksand, Sweden. That's a Jonathan Taves, Carey Price shootout game. No messing around. No Hockey Canada politics. We're getting the best players. Don't care if they play college or not, like Taves played at North Dakota. We're getting the best guys. And they did. And they won. Then they go to 08 in Pardubice in the Czech Republic. Hartsburg coaches again, back-to-back years. They win again. No messing around. Hartsy gets an NHL job. We all get it. He moves on. Pat Quinn comes in 09. No messing around. Stop messing around. Stop the politics.
Yeah.
Get the best people. Rosie, I think you agree with me. Nick, I think you agree with me. I would hope most Canadians agree with me. Like, stop this stuff.
I look at the board of directors, I look them up and I scroll through and look at their bios and everything else. And it's just like, it's embarrassing. Like, this is who's going to run this big hockey outfit is these people. It does not seem like the best minds suited for the job are in place, and they need to rectify that from the top down. They got to get the right coaches in there, get the right people picking the team and making all those politic decisions and stuff. We need that to be hockey based instead of whatever BS they're doing right now.
See, Nick, I don't have to say anymore.
That's it. No, that's exactly it. Sometimes I just
100% right, man. He's right.
I sit back, Pierre. I sit back and Rosie, you take the floor. That's why I love Jay Rosehill.
No, but Jay, think about it for 1 second. Like I wasn't messing around. Like you can go. I don't have any notes here. I'm working notes free. I didn't know what you guys were going to ask me, but I can tell you chapter and verse from '02, '03. So from '98 to 2003, Canada didn't win a gold medal. Okay, and then in '04 they thought they were going to win a gold medal in Helsinki, and they didn't. So Bob Nicholson said, "Buzz off. We're changing." And they have a meeting of the minds, and that's when there was no messing around. You guys know Brent Sutter's one tough son of a gun. Like he's
Yeah.
not messing around, and that changed the whole thing. For they won 5 straight gold medals, 5 straight. You
Yeah.
know, I was
Yeah.
at every one of them. Every year that I had the privilege of doing the world, and it was a privilege, and it always should be for anybody that works it. Every year for 9 years, I was in a gold medal game that Canada played in.
Oh,
That's a pretty heady number.
wow.
And Bob Nicholson was the architect of that because he didn't mess around. No messing around.
Seems like no one's scared of Canada anymore, too, which leads us to the next conversation. Obviously, one of the top Leafs prospects in Easton Cowan.
Yeah.
Very disappointing showing. Obviously, you're well versed in the scouting world. How's he perceived? How's he viewed right now after this tournament?
Oh, I still think he's viewed in a very positive way. I think the biggest thing was that whole team got uncomfortable after Matthew Schaefer got hurt. I don't think that was handled internally well. That game against Latvia, the shoulder goes out. It's all messy. Everybody knows it. You could see the bench just, and Jay, you've been there. You know, the bench just got deflated. And I'm going, well, this isn't good. And I like Dave Cameron. Many, many moons ago, we were players in the New Jersey Devils organization, and we were in training camp together. So I've known him way back to the 1980s, way early. He was always an honest hockey player, and he was always an honest hockey coach. But I can tell you right now, if you go check the tape, he lost it on his team probably halfway through that game. And you could see they didn't need that at that time. They needed something else because of the Schaefer injury, and they didn't get it. And it was never right. From that point on, that whole thing was never right. It was never right.
Yeah, frustrating time for sure. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about Jonathan Toews.
Yep.
He's been out dealing with some things, and he's kind of just been out of sight, out of mind for a while now. And all of a sudden, he gets towards the media saying, "I'd like to make a comeback and see what I can do." And we hear he's skating, and we start to think about what would that look like. Do you know anything about where he could fit, and specifically the Toronto Maple Leafs, if that were to somehow happen? What would it look like, and what do you think Jonathan Toews could have left in the tank as far as being a contributor force to a team?
So I'm going to take you back to a little history lesson that I was a part of. In 1990, I went to work for the Pittsburgh Penguins. They missed the playoffs that year. On the last day of the season, Uwe Krupp scored a goal for the Buffalo Sabres and knocked Pittsburgh out, shot from the blue line. And they brought in Craig Patrick, Bob Johnson, Scotty Bowman, Barry Smith, and me. Okay?
Yeah.
We brought in a player because Pittsburgh hadn't had a lot of success, and they had a pretty good lineup by the name of Brian Trottier. Where's number 19? Jonathan Toews. Trottier taught every player in that organization how to win. You can ask every player that was there for 91 and 92, the 2 cup years, and even 93, the President's Trophy year. Trottier taught everybody how to win. Guys like that are so valuable. Toews has that. Toews got that. He's been a world junior champion twice. He's been a gold medal winner in the Olympics twice. He's been an MVP of the Olympics once. He's been a Conn Smythe. Like you go down the line, his resume is impeccable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you guys something that I don't even know if Jonathan wants, but I can tell you right now, he would help so many teams. Whether he's at 100% playing ability or whether he's at 70%, because what he does, he knows how to win.
And
he's so valuable.
It seems like when that conversation comes up, just because of his age and that he's been out of the lineup for a while, and people look at his DB and are like, "Oh, he only had this many goals on this year," and blah blah. It's like, buddy, it's not about him coming in here and being an all-star. It's about his pedigree and his leadership and his experience. I think would be second to none. And if you follow the Leafs at all, they've had teams that are supposed to do X, Y, and Z, and they don't even come close. And I think a guy like that and his experience and leadership could do wonders for this locker room at where they're at right now. And I'm clamoring to get this guy because it's not going to cost you $10 million. It's going to cost you next to nothing if you can get him.
Jay and Nick, it's such a good point, and I completely agree. And again, you can go look it up, Brian Trottier and the difference that he made for our group. and ask any player that was there. And I'm talking about Paul Coffey. I'm talking about Kevin Stevens, Mark Recchi, Rick Tocchet, Mario Lemieux, Ron Francis, Joey Mullen, Ulf Samuelson, Larry Murphy, Tommy Barrasso. Ask any of those guys how much of an impact Brian Trottier made on our team. Jaromir Jagr, he was pretty good.
It sounds like a decade
All-star
all-star team you just
But
rattled
you know
off.
what? We
My
couldn't have played in
goodness.
this league because we would have broke the salary cap.
Probably. Pierre, you're the absolute best. Fantastic takes today. The chat was loving you. Very, very spicy stuff. Happy New Year once again. Thank you so much for your time today.
I'll always be there for you, Nick. I appreciate your professionalism. And the guy like below you, I don't know where he actually is on the screen, but he's not really below anybody. Rosie, you're such a man. You are a man, dude. I love it.
Yeah, I always feel on cloud nine after talking to you, man. As usual. Appreciate it.
See you,
Thanks
buddy.
again.
Talk to you guys later. Take care.
Take care.
Yeah.
The one and only Pierre McGuire, man. That was some great stuff. We covered a lot of different stuff there. That's what makes Pierre so great. It's just his versatility, man.
Well, he's a guy you could do an hour with in a heartbeat, and he says, I don't have notes in front of me. Well, you don't need notes when your brain is literally an encyclopedia of decades of hockey knowledge. It's great to catch up with him, and like he pumps my tires way too much, man. It's crazy. That's one thing I remember. I remember being on in warm up, man, and he's between the benches, and you know, I kind of grabbing a chug of water there, and he comes over and talks to you, and he like talking about the old Grizzlies or Duluth, or it's like, dude, there's 40 guys on the ice right now. How do you know anything about a guy that's as bottom of the barrel as me? But he does, man, and he cares, and he gets to know people, and he's one of those guys in the hockey world that you really appreciate.
So I'd interviewed Pierre before, but last year we really connected and doing some stuff with the NHL on YouTube in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I was on a panel and I worked with Pierre just covering the games and watching the games. Next thing you know, I got an email from Pierre like asking for my number. He's like, "Hey, it's been unbelievable working with you." Like same type of conversation where like he went out of his way to like say something kind and compliment me, which I thought was really cool. And you know, he'll never know this, but I actually had sort of an encounter with Pierre at the World Junior back in 2009 where we were talking in front of a hotel just about hockey. He had no clue who I was, but spent like 15 minutes just shooting the shit with me, which is kind of cool. So we love having Pierre on the show. And again, you know, from the breakdown of Matthew Knies to the World Junior, like the World Junior stuff was really good there.
Oh, I wasn't kidding when I think of him, when I think of the World Juniors, just the impact he made on that. He was like a staple for it. And yeah, it's funny because I wasn't sure what his take was going to be, but there was those dark years, like he mentioned, 98 to 04 or something like that. I remember those years going, why isn't Canada winning every year? Like, this is a joke. And, you know, they got away from the formula of just putting hockey people and quit dicking around. And, you know, I'm not kidding when I look at the board of directors and it's a bloody who's who of HR department bullshit, and we're getting smoked because of it. And it couldn't come at a worse time because the other countries are absolutely still like Finland is close to winning the whole damn thing. Like, God forbid when Russia gets back in there, they're going to smoke us too. I mean, get your heads out of your backsides and start putting together the best hockey team you possibly can with the people that you have available to you. It's garbage, man. It's just a metaphor for every other thing that's going on in this world. Fix it. Get the best of the best and the brightest. I do not care who they are, how old they are, what gender they are. Get the best of the best and get them in line to fix this problem because it is now officially a major problem with Hockey Canada.
Yeah, this showing this year was absolute dog shit, man. Like to lose to like Latvia and Czechia. And then like, I don't know anything about junior hockey, but even before the tournament, like people talking that they didn't even bring like 5 or 6 of their top flight players in the country. Like, what are we doing? It brought shades of Torino, man, in 06. Remember when they brought like grinders and they expected to win and it's like they got shelled?
Yeah, it's funny when you put together a team for those tournaments. It's like, do we go with just the top 5 leading scorers of each league? You know, if it's World Juniors, or just the All-Star team for the NHL. And well, then people will say, well, hey, like so and so doesn't really know how to play on the fourth line, doesn't understand. Should we make it more nuanced, and should we get, you know, a more well-balanced team and bring some of these guys? And there's examples where, you know, teams get built that way that have success because they're not one-dimensional. And I get they were trying to do that this year, but they completely missed the mark, man. And they didn't bring guys that were gonna do the things that they had in their mind. It was just every time you talk or look at Team Canada and the World Juniors this year, it's them missing the mark by a million. So changes to come, hopefully.
It's time for the last call, brought to you by Bet365. Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code NATION, all in uppercase today. That's NATION, NATION. I like the over between the Vancouver Canucks and the Montreal Canadiens. I know you hate the revisionist data. I pulled it over the weekend when I said 12 of 13 games. Well, surprise, surprise, it hit. I forget what game I touched on, but it was on the under 6.5. Was it Friday? One of those games. Do you remember what game it was?
I don't, but 12 out of 13, I mean, there's clearly a pattern there. I'm not totally against it. It's just,
No, bash it. Bash it. Do your thing.
When it starts to get silly.
It was the Montreal-Chicago. 13 of the last 14, I think they've played under 6.5. But I like the over. Last 4 or 5 here between Montreal and Vancouver. I've hit the over. And the number's a bit juiced at 5.5. I'd probably even go to 6.5 in that game.
Cool. I have got the Washington Capitals playing the Buffalo Sabres. I'm going to take the 3-way money line, so that means them to win in regulation. You're getting plus 105. They're just on a heater. Ovi's on a heater. They are
good. Yeah.
dominant. I think they're very capable. It's not a back-to-back of smashing the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, that's going to do it, Rosie. You're back in the mix on Wednesday, right?
Yes, sir. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, coming at you to cap off the week.
Should mention as well, Carter Hutton in the mix for Rosie tomorrow, and we got a very special guest once again. We talked about the Maple Leafs quarter century team. Eddie the Eagle, Eddie Belfour's coming up tomorrow on Leafs Morning Take.
Oh, I miss Eduardo. You always save the goalies for Hutsy, which I guess I get, but I'll be watching from afar.
Eddie the Eagle coming up tomorrow here on Leafs Morning Take. Thank you to everybody in the chat, minus Don Perico, who finally left the chat. The dude, I guess, doesn't have a real job or doesn't have a job in general, but spent the majority of the chat just trying to troll a team, a fan base he doesn't even support. But we'll take the follower. I'm sure you hit that subscribe button. I'm sure you hit that like button. Please do so as well. Thank you once again. At the Leafs Nation 401. Thank you to Pierre McGuire. Thank you to producer Vic. For Jay Rosehill, I'm Nick Alberga. We'll talk tomorrow. Take care. Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long-form interviews. We got clips. We got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.